Mrs. Wagner.
Madam President General, we gather this evening in a magnificent hall in the heart of our nation's capital with a debt of gratitude to repay. A debt not only to our patriot ancestors and to the brave men and women who have worn the uniform of our nation's armed forces, but also a debt to the visionary citizens who 125 years ago laid the very foundation for this evening, who together shared an ambitious and audacious undertaking to establish a nationwide organization to celebrate and perpetuate the American spirit, our beloved and enduring National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution. Tonight, we must pause to honor the patriotism, focus, and resiliency of those early leaders who so skillfully charted a course for the generations that would follow. The now familiar facts of our founding have been repeated many times, but tonight, by sharing fragments of their hopes, their motivations, their frustrations, in their own words from those first formative years, we hope that the dreams of those visionary leaders might echo down through the decades to propel us forward further still, inspired anew in service to God, home, and country. We are fortunate that our founding members' dedication to preservation has left us with many treasures in our NSDAR archives, including much of the early correspondence, documentation, and meeting notes of our fledgling society 125 years ago. Mere months after the newly founded Sons of the American Revolution voted to exclude women from their society, a passionate supporter and advocate for female descendants of the Revolution began confidential correspondence with some of his like-minded brothers in the SAR. In a letter dated October 25, 1889, William McDowell writes,
"We shall invite the organization in the different states of the Union of the Daughters of the Revolution, independent entirely of the Sons. I'm in a hurry to get at this work that I may show the Sons what the Daughters can do. On my suggestion, the vote on the subject yesterday was not recorded in our minutes, for the reason that I wanted to save the gentlemen who voted no from being so thoroughly ashamed of themselves when they see what an opportunity they had and let slip by."
After Mary Smith Lockwood wrote her rallying cry in the Washington Post and interested women began planning the new organization, the official organizing meeting was called for October 11, 1890, and included Mary DeShay, who, as Secretary Pro Tem, recorded in those meeting minutes this resolution.
Resolved that at this, our organizing meeting, we initiate the important part of our work, the securing and preserving of the historical spots of America, and the erection thereon of suitable monuments to perpetuate the memories of the heroic deeds of the men and women who aided the Revolution and created constitutional government in America, by undertaking to do what we can towards completing the monument and the memory of Mary Washington, mother of George Washington. And we hereby call upon every patriot to send us a contribution, large and small, to our treasurer for this purpose.
Just one day after that historic meeting of the newly formed Daughters of the American Revolution, Miss DeShay sent a letter to Virginia Cabell informing her of an important assignment.
My dear Mrs. Cabell, Mr. McDowell has appointed you, Mrs. Lockwood, Mrs. Darling, Mrs. Walworth, and me as committee to call on Mrs. Harrison to ask her acceptance of the office of President General. The time selected is 4:30 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, Monday, October 13th. The ladies will meet you at the White House.
5 days after that meeting at the Executive Mansion, the Secretary to the First Lady of the United States sent a letter on behalf of Mrs. Harrison to say she would accept the position. In the days and months following, meetings and correspondence gave shape to the new society. As we all know, many ideas are often put forth but not always realized. Ellen Hardin Walworth wrote to Mrs. Cabell a suggestion to consider for the Society's motto.
My dear Mrs. Cabell, it has occurred to me that I did not suggest for consideration, as I had intended, this simple motto for our seal, Amor Patriae, love of country. It seems to me that this might settle at once an objection already urged against us, in a tendency to create an aristocracy, or at least a class sentiment, as it would point to the real inspiration of the association.
From the minutes of the third and final organizing meeting on December 11, it is noted that the Executive Committee recommended that the motto, Amor Patriae, be changed to home and country. Also from this December meeting, the Vice President General presiding read aloud a telegram that had been sent from the Sons of the American Revolution.
Resolved that the General Board of Managers of the Society of the Sons of the American Revolution extend its hearty sympathy to the daughters of the American Revolution in their organization, and it assures them of cordial cooperation in their patriotic work.
As the daughters were finalizing their vision for the Society these first few months, William McDowell continued to show his support. In a letter to Mrs. Cabell on November 19, 1890, he writes in part,
My dear Mrs. Cabell, I received a newspaper clipping giving an account of your meeting and believe that your society has a brilliant future before it.
From the intensive meetings and correspondence of those early months, a constitution of the National Society was established. Our enduring objectives of historic preservation, education, and patriotism were detailed in that original DAR Constitution and continue to guide our work today.
Article 2, Objects of the Society. The objects of this society are 1. To perpetuate the memory and the spirit of the men and women who achieved American independence by the acquisition and protection of historical spots and the erection of monuments, by the encouragement of historical research in relation to the Revolution and the publication of its results, by the preservation of documents and relics, and of the records of the individual services of the revolutionary soldiers and patriots, and by the promotion of celebrations of all patriotic anniversaries. 2. To carry out the injunction of Washington in his farewell address to the American people, to promote, as an object of primary importance, institutions for the general diffusion of knowledge, thus developing an enlightened public opinion, and affording to the young and old such advantages as shall develop in them the largest capacity for performing the duties of American citizens. 3. To cherish, maintain, and extend the institutions of American freedom, to foster true patriotism and love of country, and to aid in securing for mankind all the blessings of liberty.
Reflecting on how the Society continued to grow in that first year, prolific writer and early historian general Mary Smith Lockwood described how word spread about the purpose of the society.
Newspapers took up the cry and sent intelligence over the land. Application papers began to pour in. The American women were awakened by this revelation, and now, what is it for, was answered with, it is not for an aristocracy, but to honor the men who carried the muskets and the boys who beat the drums and fifed Yankee Doodle for liberty. For the honor of the women who served the country in their homes while the men were away fighting the battles for freedom, and that their names should be rescued from the musty annals of the Revolution and for the first time inscribed on the pages of history as factors in making the nation.
At the First Continental Congress in February of 1892, Registrar General Eugenia Washington stressed the importance of preserving the stories and records of our Revolutionary Patriot ancestors and the importance of verifying documentation to ensure its integrity.
The records of the services of these 1,306 patriots thus preserved form volumes of most interesting as well as valuable history. Yet this history will lose much of its value if the statements contained therein are not to be relied upon. Therefore, we recommend to the regents and delegates present to give an exact and full statement of the ancestors' service and authority for the statement. For these records, we should remember, are collected not only for present use, but shall stand through future generations as monuments to our noble sires.
Our founders knew the importance of preserving those records in an appropriately prominent home for the society. Virginia Cabell addressed the membership at the First Continental Congress and prophetically described the magnificent DAR headquarters complex where we gather annually for our conference and which serves our membership and the entire Washington, D.C. community throughout the year as a brick and mortar testament to their visionary foresight.
The building of a house beautiful, to be the property of these American women calling themselves by inherited right daughters of the American Revolution. This house will be built in or near the beautiful capital city named for Washington, the immortal. It should be the finest building ever owned by women. The fairest marbles from Vermont and Tennessee, the most enduring granite from Massachusetts and the Virginias. Purely American this structure should be. A great hall for lectures, addresses, and general conventions of the society is greatly needed. It could be utilized on many occasions to produce a certain income for its support. Offices and committee rooms are required for the business of the society, now more than 1,000 in number, and soon to number many thousands. Safes are essential for the preservation of documents and relics. There should be a library unsurpassed in all branches pertaining to the records of the society and containing the largest, most complete collections of works upon American history.
While our beloved First President General did not live to see how our society flourished beyond those early years, she set a tone at her address to the First Continental Congress, a challenge that emboldened our early members and continues to inspire us today.
Our hope is in unity and self-sacrifice. Since this society was organized, and so much thought and reading directed to the early struggle of this country, it has been made plain that much of its success was due to the character of the women of that earlier era. The unselfish part they acted constantly commends itself to our admiration and example. If there is no abatement in this element of success in our ranks, I feel sure their daughters can perpetuate a society worthy of the cause and worthy of themselves. We now feel that this society is firmly established and in good condition for future success. It remains with us all to see that it lives and grows to greater and better ends.
Madam President General, it is a privilege for me, as the National Chairman of the Celebrate 125 Committee, to express on behalf of all daughters, past and present, our heartfelt commitment to carry forward Mrs. Harrison's charge that our society lives and grows to greater and better ends. After 125 years of accomplishment, we rise with joy to face a future bright with promise, one built upon the soundest of foundations and the most enduring of missions. I congratulate you and the National Society on 125 years of service to America. And inspired anew by the words of our founders, I also suspect that the best is yet to come. Happy birthday, NSDAR.
Thank you, Presley. It is so inspiring to know that at that organizing meeting 125 years ago, with just 18 members in attendance, that the business they carried out that day is still guiding our organization today. We are so fortunate to have been founded by such strong and visionary women. In the years that followed that formative period, daughters everywhere fulfilled the joyful obligations of citizenship and membership in tens of thousands of ways, and literally millions of lives were changed for the better as a result. New citizens, deserving students, men and women in uniform, veterans in need, all have been served by the DAR. Tens of thousands of Patriot records and grave sites preserved and protected thanks to DAR. Thousands of local sites of historic significance would likely have disappeared long ago were it not for the DAR. No single evening could do justice to the breadth and scope of DAR's impact on America during the last 125 years. So I encourage you to learn more about our amazing history, to visit our website, subscribe to our award-winning American Spirit magazine, read our publications such as The American Treasure, The Enduring Spirit of DAR. I assure you that you too will be awed by the combined accomplishment of our organization. I learn new chapters of our history every day.
At its onset, the founding members of the Daughters of the American Revolution invoked the thoughts of our country's founders, that education, above all else, is the decisive element of a democracy. The DAR built this idea to the three pillars of the organization and have dedicated a majority of their efforts over the past century to education programs throughout the nation. In the early 20th century, the newly formed DAR contributed financial support at the chapter level to numerous schools across the country. In 1914, the South Carolina Daughters voted to establish a school for mountain girls in the remote northwestern part of the state. Securing support from the National Society, as well as land and financial donations, the chapter opened the Tomasi DAR School in February of 1919, and today continues its educational mission. Other areas of the country also saw the creation of schools during the early 20th century, including the Kate Duncan Smith DAR School in Alabama, the Crossnors School in North Carolina, the Hillside School in Massachusetts, the Hindman Settlement School in Kentucky, and Berry College in Georgia. Today, the 6 DAR schools are funded by over $1 million annually from the DAR. Through DAR's American Indians Committee, funds are also allocated to Bacone College in Oklahoma and Chemawa Indian Preparatory Academy in Oregon to help the educational needs of Native American students. American history has always been a focus of DAR education efforts. The first DAR American History Essay Contest was held in 1898. Today, through a nationally coordinated program that encourages youngsters to learn about history in a new light, more than 4,000 schools participate in this annual contest for students in grades 5 through 8, with nearly 66,000 essays submitted yearly. The DAR awards approximately $200,000 yearly in a wide range of disciplines. Applications for DAR scholarships average more than 1,600 each year. Educating the next generation to be good citizens is also a top priority for the DAR through various programs. In 1921, after years of chapter-level citizen education programs for immigrants, the National Society published the DAR Manual for Citizenship to help educate newly arrived immigrants preparing for the naturalization process. Over the next few decades, the DAR would produce over 1 million copies of the manual. Junior American Citizens Committee is one of the Society's oldest youth-oriented committees. It reaches out to tens of thousands of students from kindergarten through grade 12 to promote patriotism in every child. To help promote the program across the country, many chapters recognize achievements through awards, as well as holding contests in creative expression and community service. With more than half of the national committees focusing on elements of education, the DAR is prioritizing this founding principle within the organization. Over the last 125 years, through its many programs for youth and adults, the DAR has given the opportunity to learn to millions of lives. With a force of nearly 1 million members since its founding, the Daughters of the American Revolution have performed a vital range of service in support of the military over the past 125 years. Founded to preserve the memory and spirit of the revolutionary patriots who fought for America's independence, the DAR extends that mission by honoring the sacrifices of all those who have continued fighting for our freedom throughout our nation's history. Patriotism, one of the founding tenets of the organization, lives within each and every daughter. While the DAR was still in its infancy, the United States found itself in conflict with Spain in 1898. Dr. Anita Newcomb McGee, then a DAR Vice President General, volunteered the organization to help screen the nurses needed by the government. The DAR Hospital Corps would be established and screened thousands of nursing applications within the next few months, sending more than 1,500 nurses to help in the conflict. During the First World War, numerous chapters volunteered their efforts to help. Members of the Cincinnati DAR knitted garments for the troops. Other chapters rolled bandages, collected clothing, and donated food for the USO. The Mercy Warren chapter of Springfield, Massachusetts, hosted first aid classes and fundraisers. After the attacks on Pearl Harbor, the DAR headquarters became a center for wartime activity. Offices throughout the DAR buildings were loaned to the American Red Cross. A day nursery was opened in the basement of Constitution Hall for the children of enlisted men whose wives were working. The DAR members also purchased over $2 million in war bonds and stamps during the course of the fighting. Through conflicts in Korea, Vietnam, and the Middle East, DAR members passionately lent their support in various ways through monetary donations and volunteer efforts. Following the attack on September 11th, the DAR worked with the Department of the Navy to sponsor the crew of the aircraft carrier USS John C. Stennis. When the ship returned to port, DAR members' support shifted to the Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany, which cares for wounded military personnel. DAR members also regularly send care packages to troops overseas. Care for our nation's veterans has also always been a top priority for the DAR, and members perform more than 300,000 volunteer hours annually to support veterans programs. The DAR is one of the largest groups to serve on the Department of Veterans Affairs Voluntary Service National Advisory Committee, and DAR member volunteers are a regular fixture at VA hospitals across the country. The Daughter Support to Veterans also provides the perfect setting for capturing and recording their stories as part of the Library of Congress Veterans History Project. DAR members have also served in all branches of service themselves, including more than 600 members who served in a variety of capacities during World War II, and many more who have come after them. Whether at home or abroad, the members of the Daughters of the American Revolution serve the country that they love with the same dedication as their revolutionary patriots. Through their continuing efforts to support active duty service members and honor veterans, DAR members are committed to celebrating those who defend our nation's freedom. Honoring and preserving the memory of those who served in the American Revolution not only includes the signers of the Declaration of Independence or high-ranking military officers, but also the everyday soldier or colonist who contributed to our fight for independence. As many as 250,000 men served in the Army or militia, and countless others heroically helped with the efforts. In the first report to Congress, the newly formed Daughters of the American Revolution described that their genealogical research showed the experiences of the many unnoticed heroes and forgotten heroines who composed the rank and file of the nation in 1776. Patriots like Peter Rogers, who enlisted as a fife major in the 4th Regiment, Connecticut Line, and served in Washington's Army in Pennsylvania, and William Hughes, who was a volunteer private in the 2nd New Hampshire Regiment. Other patriots contributed to the cause off the battlefield, such as Michael Gratz of Philadelphia, who signed a pledge to cease trading with the British and supplied gunpowder and firearms to George Washington's troops. Women also contributed to the fight for independence, but their efforts were often less heralded. In the early 1920s, the Daughters of the New York State Organization helped to honor a once-forgotten patriot with a burial place of honor. Margaret Cochran Corbin manned an artillery cannon after her husband was killed during a battle. She was wounded and years later was buried near West Point. Through research, the DAR linked Margaret Corbin to her heroic actions. Her body was exhumed and buried in a place of honor in the West Point Cemetery. Other women patriots also had military combat experience in the Revolution, such as Deborah Sampson, who disguised herself as a man and served in the Continental Army for 17 months before being wounded and honorably discharged. Elizabeth Zane showed great courage during the siege of Fort Henry when she volunteered to leave the fort during a pause in gun battle to fetch a keg of gunpowder and narrowly returned safely with the precious ammunition. While never directly in the line of fire, Mercy Otis Warren's strong convictions and political writings during the Revolution helped to galvanize the cause. African American and American Indian patriots also participated in the American Revolution. James Armistead, a slave, served as a spy for the Americans, while acting as a servant for British General Cornwallis. And Toby Gilmore, an African-born slave, won his own freedom by serving as a private in the Continental Army and contributing to a number of significant battles. Peter Harris, of the Catawba Nation in South Carolina, fought in the Revolution and was eventually recognized for his service. In October 2002, DAR opened the exhibit Forgotten Patriots, African American and American Indian Patriots in the Revolutionary War. It was the culmination of more than 20 years of research based on a publication produced by DAR. To date, thousands of African American and American Indian patriots have been identified, and DAR researchers continue to work to uncover these individuals and their unique stories. Many foreign patriots also fought shoulder to shoulder with American patriots during the Revolution cause. Additionally, Spanish citizens provided enormous financial and military support to the American Revolution. Don Diego de Guerdeque was the financial intermediary between the Spanish court and the colonies during the American Revolution, helping to supply munitions and other military goods to the colonists. And the great Spanish military leader Bernardo de Galvez led Spanish forces defeating the British at the Siege of Pensacola. In the 1990s, the DAR formed a task force to identify Spanish nationals who contributed to the revolutionary cause. Since that time, members of the task force continue to develop a bibliography of historic events and sources that can prove Revolutionary War service of Spanish nationals. DAR's work and genealogical research has helped increase the knowledge of the patriots who helped make this country. With each new application and each new bit of information, we can have an understanding of the sacrifices that were made in the 18th century. And with that, we can honor those heroes, one and all.
The 125th anniversary of the founding of the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution is an exciting time to be a DAR member. We have looked back at our archives and we found some wonderful videos of our past Presidents General as they have shared their memories from decades ago. And now we are digitizing those for future generations, and we have invited our current Honorary Presidents General to share their memories of their administrations and their accomplishments with us today.
I was very in awe of the organization because my mother-in-law, Lorna Owen Kemper, was chaplain general in Mrs. Spicer's administration. I, too, became responsible for that I believe in education, historic preservation, and patriotism down deep in my heart. So I wanted to be a part of that.
I wanted to join, first of all, to carry on for my mother. My mother died. I joined the next year. And because so many of the family members, grandma and my cousins, and they're all, the mother, all members of DAR. So I just said, time to carry on.
I joined DAR as a junior member. I joined my mother's chapter and have been a member for many, many years. I think the reason I really joined the organization was because of a love of the objectives that it promoted. Historic preservation and education, and I was also very interested in genealogy.
I joined DAR in 1968, along with my mother and several family members. We were asked to form a new chapter, and that was named for my ancestor, Peter Houston. And after attending my first state conference in Nashville, I met so many outstanding Tennessee Daughters that I just knew I wanted to be a part of this organization.
Well, my mother was truly the driving force behind my joining the DAR. I was raised in a family where my parents instilled a very strong sense of family history and love of country. And so the first time I went to the Continental Congress 40 years ago, I knew once I had been here that this was the organization I wanted to identify with, and I wanted to become just very much involved in every aspect of DAR.
One thing that I've always enjoyed about DAR is the interactions between generations. When I joined, I was one of the younger members, and now I'm one of the older ones, but I'm still enjoying it very much.
When I first joined DAR, I had no intention, and a lady called me. I didn't know who she was, and my second cousin had met her at a state conference and said I had recently moved to the area. And those ladies made me feel so welcome, and I don't think I would ever have become active had they not called me the week before the meeting to make sure I had a babysitter, offered to watch my son so I could go to the meetings. Several times when I didn't have a sitter, they said, bring him with you.
When I was growing up, I was always aware that I had family members who had been members of the DAR. and been encouraged to join at some point. And really, after the bicentennial of our country, when all the fervor of patriotism, I decided it was a good time for me to join, so I began the application process.
Well, I enjoyed the work, and I love to be with the members and also all the work they did with the students and scholarships and the schools, the DAR schools. I enjoyed that. Of course, I was a teacher. We raised over $777,000 for Ellis Island and helped with the restoration of the Statue of Liberty.
When we became involved in the World War II Memorial campaign, raised over $460,000. Had the opportunity to work with who was the volunteer national chairman.
We raised over $4.2 million for things to the buildings.
My President General's project began the creation of a new digital database designed to improve operations and provide member access. The work of our genealogy department was expedited with the digitization of 800,000 applications and the accompanying 9 million support documents.
My primary goal when I was elected President General was to complete the digitization project that was begun in the previous administration. That was a continuing President General's project. A few of the proudest moments were the dedication ceremony of the Marian Anderson Commemorative Camp, and it was a wonderful opportunity.
Anderson's family. I'm proud of this project, especially Paris, with need of work. Paris to build a 2300 vault just beneath that surface for collections of the city, and that was a wealth of storage space.
As crazy as it seems, Washington, D.C. experienced an earthquake. When they did the assessment of the DAR library ley-light ceiling, they discovered not damage from the earthquake, but damage from time. And our members who love Our House Beautiful so much came through with over $2 million to support the restoration of the DAR library ley-light.
Most fun activities that we implemented was our Celebrate America Committee. When we met, we challenged our members to try to come up with 1 million hours of community service a year. We just asked them to record the hours they're already doing in their community. And what astonished us is the enthusiasm that the chapters developed while working together in these community projects, how they became better acquainted with their own members. And then our first year, we had over 4,760,000 hours of community service.
My advice was to enjoy every minute, yeah. Work hard and enjoy it, yeah.
I think one thing is very important, and that is to approach your leadership as an opportunity for service and to surround yourself with wonderful people who will help you to accomplish that.
I think it's important for people who are going to take on leadership positions to remember that their goal should be to work for the very best of the organization, to always keep in mind what the mission is, and to do their very best for DAR. I think any President General who's going to take that role needs to know that she's got to put on her running shoes and get on the track, and she won't get off for 3 years.
Always be true to yourself, and when you make a decision about anything, always be certain of what that decision will reflect on as far as the national society is concerned, and also what influence it might have on other daughters at the time. So when you look in the mirror, be true to yourself and always think about others.
I hope every member will consider becoming a leader, whether it's in her chapter or her state or the national level. What I would encourage them to do is to learn as much as you can about them. Take advantage of every opportunity. Go to all those meetings, go to the workshops and the seminars, and learn as much as possible. But it's not possible to serve as President General without the full support of your family. That it truly is the biggest sacrifice, is the time with my family that I'm missing. They are completely supportive because they know that this is a rare privilege that I have for 3 years.
and I'm enjoying every bit of it.
The most rewarding things as a member of DAR has been the association with ladies from all over the United States and through the units overseas. The friendships made have been just precious and dear, and I think every member will feel that way about the friendships.
The 125th anniversary is the perfect time to reflect on the energy and the mindset of our founders. One of the things that I feel has occurred over the past 25 years is that the DAR has been able to better accommodate the busy women who are working outside the home, women who have so many things going on in their lives. I think we've done a wonderful job of accommodating them in terms of an organization.
Celebrating our 125th anniversary of this society, I can't help but think back over the years and reflect on all the leaders that we've had and all the members that have done so much over the years and their dedication to the work of the society. It's really amazing when you think about it, that a small group of women organized this society in 1890, and yet many of their goals are still being sought after today, and we're working towards making this a continuing better society.
My involvement in DAR has always been spurred by the values of the organization and the friendships that I've made there. I have to say that one of the things that DAR allowed me to do is emulate the very best of the people I met.
I've often wondered as we're planning our quasquicentennial celebration what our founders would think of us. From 125 years ago when they began to have the vision for this organization and make plans for it, what would they think if they were to come back and see this society now and see how it's grown, see what wonderful care we've taken of these buildings, which they had the vision for? I know that our founders would be so proud that our society has grown, that we're continuing to be a vital part of this country, that we're holding dear to our missions of historic preservation, education, and patriotism, and that most of all, we're still honoring God, home, and country as we serve united in these United States. 125 years ago when our founders met for the first time, they determined we needed a fireproof building and managed to not only raise some money, but build this beautiful complex of buildings. The Guardian Trust campaign is the way for today's DAR to provide for tomorrow's DAR. Now is the time to create this endowment fund to preserve our buildings for the future.
When our founders and the early leaders of the DAR, they had the courage to step out in faith and to bit by bit buy the property, and then stone by stone they built the building. And they didn't get the roof on for the First Continental Congress. And when they finally finished it, they realized that every one of the Presidents General involved had been supportive and willing to promote the project.
Certainly our younger daughters that are daughters now, and those that will become members in the future, will always be proud of these buildings. To know the history of that small band of women that built these buildings is just incredible, that story, and we all want to continue that legacy. All of our members are proud to say that this is buildings that were built and maintained by women.
We can proudly say that we not only have a large collection of personal artifacts from the American Revolution, we have one of the largest collections of genealogical libraries in the world. We have a fabulous DAR museum that we share with school children every week that never have an opportunity to see museums otherwise. Constitution Hall has nearly 1 million visitors a year. It's the largest concert hall in the metropolitan D.C. area. Most of all, our founders had a vision for a home. We have a home right here at 1776 D Street. When you think of preserving these buildings, I think you have to remember what we have in this building, those beautiful period rooms. Think of the Americana room and all of those precious documents, all of the furnishings throughout our buildings. Just think of the buildings, the architecture itself. That preservation effort is awesome. It is something that we are committed to doing, and it takes resources to do that. We have inherited these, and it's up to us to protect and preserve them.
I think my first impression of a visit to 1776 D Street was that the entire complex of buildings was absolutely overwhelming. And then experiences of being in Constitution Hall at the meetings and the opening night and National Defense Night ceremonies. I think that all of these things for a young DAR member were very impressionable experiences because it was an overwhelming thing to be there for the first time.
Well, most of the time, a President General has not had the opportunity to make a choice because of the needs of the maintenance of our headquarters. A President General should not be forced to take that on as her project. Our President General should take out projects that go beyond our headquarters, out into the world around us. What has been done in the past is there to remain. What will be done in today's world will be there to remain in future years. So everything we've done has not been in vain. So it is high time that we create some kind of an endowment that will preserve those buildings for years to come.
It would be wonderful to have that endowment so you didn't have each administration have to have a project to raise funds for this to prepare this building or do that building or anything else like that. So that's all taken care of so they can go ahead and do marvelous things, more things with students, education and conservation and restoration.
And I see this Guardian Trust campaign as one that may take several administrations to raise the money, but our members will realize that they're doing the same thing today that our early members did in order to build the buildings, and they're building a fund, the Guardian Trust Fund, that will take care of our buildings forever.
Can you imagine what we would be able to do as an organization if we didn't have to worry about where the funds are coming from to maintain our beautiful buildings? Can you imagine what we could do on the national level, on the state level, and in our local communities in the way of programs and projects? So I invite you, each and every one of you members who love this organization, who are committed to preserving what we have for future generations, to join me in supporting the Guardian Trust campaign. My hope, my vision, is that we will have this wonderful endowment campaign, and that 125 years our buildings will be as beautiful then as they are now. I want my granddaughter to come here in 18 years when she's a member and be proud of these buildings that we've taken good care of. I want my great-granddaughter and my great-great-granddaughters to come when they're members and also share in our vision and say, my great-grandma took part in this. She helped keep these buildings as beautiful as they are. What this organization needs first and foremost is a home.
Built by women, managed by women, run by women.
What our founders built, we must preserve. It should be the finest building ever owned by women.
This is about more than just one President General and one project. Now is the time for an endowment to preserve our fantastic home.
This Guardian Trust campaign is about taking care of the vision of our founders. 125 years later, we have the opportunity to not only preserve and restore this building, but to make sure that it is still as beautiful 125 years from now as it is today. Please join me in giving to the Guardian Trust campaign for future generations. almost 1 million women have joined the society since its founding. We want to show the hundreds of thousands or even millions of hours they have given in service to their communities, and to show that they are passionate about their preservation of our history, promotion of quality education, and of showing their patriotic pride in America.
The Celebrate America initiative was created in honor of the 125th anniversary of the Daughters of the American Revolution. It encourages members to become involved in community service and to record their hours to help highlight the mission of the service organization.
We decided to call it Celebrate America because it's our way to show how DAR gives back to our communities. We have such a history of service within the organization, and we are so willing to share our time and talents with others to make America an even better place.
DAR members have answered the call for service throughout the group's history. In the late 19th century, the newly formed organization helped found the Army Nurse Corps at the onset of the Spanish-American War. For decades, the DAR supported the mission of the Red Cross in times of crisis, and members worked with newly arrived immigrants on Ellis Island.
What if we challenged our members to 1 million hours over the 3 years? And that seemed a little scary. Did the math and divided it by our number of members. Well, what if we challenged them to 1 million hours a year? And so as we quickly exceeded that goal, we realized we underestimated the daughters and how hard they're working nationwide. So now we've set a new goal of 10 million hours for the administration, and I think we may have once again underestimated our members.
DAR members have long been involved in community service. Now through Celebrate America, they are also logging their hours to tell the story of how DAR gives back to America.
We have received hundreds of stories of how our members are working in their communities worldwide. We have a member in Arkansas who has her therapy dog called Stormy, and she takes Stormy to a local elementary school to help students who are having trouble with reading. One of my other favorite stories is a 70-year-old member in Louisiana who wanted to draw attention as part of an organization to the number of children in foster care in Louisiana. So what did she do? She rappelled down a building. One of our members in Massachusetts works with a VA-sponsored program called Waves for the Brave. They take veterans who have amputations, take them to the beach, and let them surf. And then this lady served as a catcher in the water. So if they fell, if they had any problems, she was there to catch them and bring them in.
Whether DAR members are escorting World War II veterans on honor flights, caring for historic sites, helping bring awareness to health issues, or working with underserved youth, the daughters are celebrating America through service to their communities.
The beauty of the Celebrate America program is the cumulative effect it has. However we're doing it, we are making a difference, and that's the story we want to be able to tell.
Knowing that other people care and that other people are out there wanting to do something good in their community, I think that's really powerful.
As DAR members, when we think of service, it's very broad, and it is from the gifts that each person has to contribute. When you volunteer, not only are you taking all of the talents and the experiences that you have and putting them to work in the community, but you're also building up the community at the same time. We want a society founded on service. That was a quotation taken directly from Eugenia Washington, one of our founders. And over the last 225 years, that is exactly what has happened. DAR members have been involved in service to their communities from the beginning of the organization, and we continue to do that today. DAR itself is a very large organization. Almost 3,000 chapters in every state of the Union, as well as in numerous countries across the world. Those 177,000 women, wherever they find themselves, can impact their communities in very positive ways. So it starts from a very small effort. It might be a member recognizing the need that the community needs a food pantry, and she decides to organize it. She's making a difference in her community because one person saw the need
and decided to act on it?
So I've been volunteering with the Carpenter Shelter, I believe, for about 8.5 years. So now I generally volunteer on Sunday mornings. My very favorite responsibility is announcing breakfast. And it's my sole job to wake up the residents on Sunday mornings and tell them what an amazing breakfast is waiting for them.
Associations in the community and community groups and the DAR and many other service organizations in our community really do make a difference, and we try and build as many connections to them as possible, recognizing that we do have a shared interest, healthy, strong communities.
DAR only recently formed the Special Projects Grants Program at the national level, but DAR daughters have been helping their communities for the past 125 years. Matching fund grants of up to $10,000 are awarded in the areas of historic preservation, education, and patriotism. Over the past few years, DAR has awarded over $250,000 annually in support of local activities.
The Bath Community Library was founded in 1701, and it was founded because someone in England sent books to the St. Thomas